Waterside a few days ago. So over to Keith on video. Thank you for being with us today by video. We know you can't be here in person because when we're showing the video, you'll be actually elsewhere heading for Madrid. So we appreciate your time today. I'd just like to start off by asking you how you found it in the last few months since you became CEO, because of course you're not new to British Airways, but you took the CEO hot seat less than a year ago, I think. How has that been, and how does it compare with your previous role as CFO?
Yeah, I'm firstly sorry I can't be with you today. The reason is I'm actually going down for an investor day. In terms of the year, I've been in post, I think, almost a year now. It's been an eventful year. All years within the industry are eventful, and this one's no exception. As CEO, in many ways, it's not that much different from my role at CFO. I'd say it's more that I feel like I'm the captain of the team today, but it's still a team. I've got a team of 11 people. Some of them are new players on the pitch, some of them are old, experienced players on the pitch, but it makes a good team.
One of the problems which was still rumbling on when you came into the CEO role was, of course, a very public cabin crew dispute, which had affected BA for well over a year, 18 months. That's now been resolved, at least in public terms. Is it really all done and dusted? Are you now able to move forward from that quite difficult time?
Yeah, I think it is. If I look at what's happened over the last several years at BA, we've had a lot of reconstruction to make within the company to respond to what's been happening in the wider environment. And the cabin crew dispute, as you said, was a long dispute. I think it was ready for settlement when I came into my role. It's now been settled. We're trying to move forward. We are moving forward in terms of the brand and pushing the brand forward. So there's a lot of work going on there. There's been a lot of change in the company. And to my mind, you don't get the amount of change that we've made without some disruption along the way.
So that was a big internal problem, but of course the industry is known for facing almost a continuous series of crises. What would you say is the external backdrop that BA faces currently in terms of global challenges?
Yeah, I'd put it in sort of three buckets, really. There's a short-term issue, there's a medium-term issue, and then there's the longer term. If I look in the shorter term, if you look at the economic backdrop, the economic backdrop is obviously looking slower than it has been in the past. And against that, you've got a very high oil price at the same time, which is different from where we were a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, we had good economic growth and a high oil price. The two together weren't too much of a challenge. Then we had the very slow economic backdrop, but at the same time a very low oil price. So we managed to sail through that. Today you've got a combination of slowing economic growth and a high oil price. So that's going to make a short-term challenge for BA and for the industry. In the medium term, I think there's a lot more consolidation to happen within the industry, and that will happen over time. And then the longer term for me is we need to look at our environmental footprint and the things that we need to do there as an industry to satisfy the economic and environmental concerns at the same time.
And how about some of the wider challenges which we've seen in the last few years? I think if anybody had been planning ahead, you couldn't have put on your list that there might be a volcanic eruption, a major earthquake in Japan, the financial meltdown which we've seen since 2008 and the ongoing Eurozone problems. Do you think the industry is getting better at dealing with this type of thing? Because it isn't possible to forecast these type of events, but they have a massive impact on business volumes and financial performance for airlines.
I forget which British Prime Minister once said, "Events, my boy, events," but I think events are always going to be there for our industry. And for me, part of it is how quickly you recover from those events, both in terms of improving the performance of the airline, but similarly improving the performance for our customers, and we're working on both. So there's a lot of work going on in terms of managing capacity and everything else for downturns. At the same time, there's a lot of work going on within BA as to how we best recover from events and best serve our customers through that.
Now, another challenge you face here in the UK is government taxes on tickets for air passenger duty, and there are other similar taxes in other parts of Europe and indeed the world. Do you think governments have overestimated the ability to put these type of taxes on aviation, on ticket prices, and is there going to be any change to that you would see in the future, and what effect is it having on you and indeed on some markets you serve?
Yeah, we've got a mixture of global or attempted global taxes and UK taxes, and the UK is the most highly taxed aviation market now in the world. If I break it between the two, if I look at APD first of all, which I think came in 1995 and has been around for some time, it's had some pretty significant hikes over the last couple of years, and that does have an effect on travel, particularly in non-premium travel. And what we've seen under the rules that exist under APD, that for some destinations they're disincentivized and other destinations are incentivized. So take for instance is that we fly both to the Caribbean and to Florida. There's a higher level of tax to the Caribbean than there is to Florida, and we've adjusted our capacity to fly more to Florida than the Caribbean, really, because demand has dampened down in the Caribbean down to APD increases. So that's at the local level. At the more international level, as BA, we've always favoured emissions trading as a way of tackling our environmental footprint. What we need to see, however, is a global solution to emissions trading, not just a European solution. So we're looking to support a global answer, and indeed that's where the industry is, and that's where I think we need to get to.
Do you think in that context we might see some difficulties next year when the European ETS scheme comes into place? We've seen a number of countries threatening retaliatory action, and are we going to see a kind of airline trade war possibly evolving in the coming months?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but what I would say, it is something that I think is a danger for the European airline industry, certainly. You have seen threats of retaliatory action from China, from India, from the US, and that is bad for business. It's bad for our business, and it's bad for global trade at the same time. So it's something that needs resolution over the coming months.
Now, looking at the actual shape of the airline industry, you touched on BA's own realignment or rebalancing between long haul and short haul traffic. Is there a kind of a broader change in structure of the industry happening? I mean, are we seeing a realignment of, for example, long haul? We see the growth of carriers in the Gulf, for example, Emirates, Etihad, Qatar. In the short haul market, we have very strong low-cost carriers in Europe, such as Ryanair and EasyJet, and indeed in other parts of the world. Is that something of a polarization which is going to happen more, you think, in the future?
Yeah, my job is to make us competitive in both those markets in terms of long haul and short haul markets. If I look at the short haul market in particular, you have seen the growth of the low-cost carriers, and I think in Europe today, they come from a standing start and now have, 45-50% of the market. The legacy carriers still have their share of the market, and it's the regional carriers that have been squeezed down the middle.
Let's just pause at that particular moment, because we recorded this interview a few days before it was announced, I think last Friday, that British Airways parent company IAG had announced a plan to buy the UK carrier British Midland Airways from Lufthansa Group. Now, just as Keith was saying there, it's the regional carriers who are currently being squeezed, and British Midland, which is actually an airline which I worked for in the early part of my career, you could say is a regional carrier. It's not a low-cost carrier. It doesn't have the global reach of a company like British Airways, but what it does have is an enormous number of slots at London Heathrow Airport, which is, of course, British Airways' home base, and where they face enormous constraints due to a lack of growth at that airport. This is something that's going to be a key industry issue in the next few weeks and months to see how this plays out, because while British Airways has announced they have a plan and an agreement in principle with Lufthansa to buy this company, we also know that another UK carrier, Virgin Atlantic, has also expressed an interest and is also planning to put in a bid. Virgin also has a view that if British Airways was indeed permitted to buy British Midland, there would be even more of a strong position for that company at Heathrow, and that Virgin themselves would find themselves squeezed out. So although Keith couldn't talk about that the morning I visited him, it is an issue we're going to see occupying media space in the next few weeks, and it will change the shape of the industry. Now let's hear the rest of what Keith had to say.
What I see is that there is a relevancy for the legacy carriers in the short-haul market. Indeed, if I look at the last couple of months, we've won a number of awards for short-haul airline of the year in a number of our sort of segments. So, in that market we're doing well, but can't be complacent there. We need to change with where customer tastes change over time, and we need to adapt to that.
And in the long-haul market, the challenges of, for example, these Middle Eastern carriers or indeed the premium Asian carriers, is that something that you would say BA is up to the fight and going to take the fight forward?
Yeah, we've made a lot of changes over the last 10 years to better be able to compete in those markets. What we need to do is to respond to that competition. We're doing a lot of work at the moment with the brand. We've got new products coming out over the next 12, 18 months. We're doing a lot of work on innovation within the industry, and all that's coming together. What I'm seeing at the moment is strong demand for British Airways and British Airways products. What I need to do is to ensure that continues going forward.
Now, we have seen mergers of some major airline groups in recent years, both in the US and in Europe. And indeed, in the last year, British Airways is now part of a new grouping called IAG, or the full name International Consolidated Airline Group. Many people in the audience may not understand that. Can you explain what that means now in terms of what is this new grouping and where does British Airways sit as a business within that?
Yeah, so there was a merger with Iberia last year, and as you said, that was under the umbrella of IAG. And IAG acts as a holding company of two operating companies. The one thing I'd sort of point out very, very quickly is if you look at those two operating companies, they've got very different brands. You've got a British Airways brand, you've got an Iberian brand, and the two will always remain independent of each other. And my role as CEO of BA is to push forward the BA brand, and equally my counterpart in Iberia will push forward the Iberian brand. But it isn't intended to bring the two together. We are two distinct brands, and we will remain two distinct brands. And IAG will hopefully add more operating companies to the portfolio over time.
Has it meant any changes to your actual network in terms of routes served or realignment between yourselves and Iberia?
Yeah, for British Airways, it brings a number of advantages. In terms of network, it allows us to compete far better in South America than we were able to do previously. Now, that doesn't mean to say that all traffic would go through Madrid onto South America. It actually gives British Airways a better selling capability within South America, and that's encouraged us to add a route, say, to Buenos Aires. Of equal importance in terms of consolidation within the industry, we've now got antitrust immunity with American, and that supports us in North America. And an example there is, we've recently reflying to San Diego, and that's on the back of the greater selling capability that American gives us in California. So those are just two examples the way the industry is consolidating, which is of advantage to British Airways.
It may be of advantage to British Airways, but possibly some consumers and again people in the audience may wonder, is this going to be a bad thing from the point of view of the travelling public if airlines start getting together, be it through mergers or joint ventures or alliances? Is this not going to lead to a kind of a semi-monopolistic situation in the marketplace, and consumers will end up being worse off than they are today?
No, I think consumers have a great deal of choice today and will continue to have a great deal of choice in the future. I think it actually helps the consumer, because if you take an example of British Airways flying to New York, previously we would set off at the same time or roughly the same time as flights from American. We can now work together to establish a schedule that flies on the hour in the afternoon and in the evening, which is a better suit for the customer.
And one question about your own future fleet plans, Keith. BA hasn't had a large renewal of its long-haul fleet for some years. Indeed, some of your 747s are, I think, maybe 20 years vintage in age. But you have got orders in for new generation aircraft, both with Airbus, the A380 and Boeing 787 Dreamliner. When are they coming on stream, and what is that going to mean in terms of your options for route and network development and for the customer in terms of flying experience? Yeah,
I think we've got the aircraft coming in at a very good time. We've got 12 A380s and 24 787s, so a combination of the two. The A380s will do some of the big trunk routes. The 787s will give us more flexibility to serve markets that we haven't served before. The other advantage of those aircraft is they're much more fuel efficient and noise efficient than the older aircraft in the fleet. And they give us the capability to grow if the market's growing, and retire 747s if the market is shrinking. So it gives us maximum flexibility, a better oil price consumption, and a great service to the destinations we want to serve.
You mentioned also earlier on about emissions being a key issue for the industry, and aviation certainly has been heavily targeted by governments, not just with the emissions trading scheme, but questions about short-haul air travel, the industry's responsibility. Is this something that British Airways takes seriously? Are there any specific things that you are doing to improve your environmental credentials?
Yeah, as I said earlier, for me, if I look out to the longer term, I think environment will play a greater part in the role of the industry and a greater part in the role that British Airways plays. And we need to be in the forefront of that. And there's a couple of things that we're doing is, one, we're working on fuel efficiency within the airline, and we've got a number of initiatives within that to improve our own footprint in the short term. We're also investing in a plant with a company that produces biojet to put into our aircraft, and that will be better from the environmental viewpoint than we are today. So there's a number of initiatives that we have. Ultimately, the change in aircraft will add to that. It will reduce our noise footprint, and that's a pattern I think we need to continue for the longer term, really as BA and as an industry.
Keith, we know you have a very busy agenda. We really appreciate you taking time out to speak with us today for the World Travel Market. We wish you great success with your future work in the coming months and years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we heard there the multitude of challenges which British Airways, its parent group IAG, and the industry at large are facing at the present time. Keep in mind that British Airways is a full-service carrier, and it's just started to promote itself again using its well-established phrase, to fly to serve. But the question is, can it do anything with that in this day and age when times are tough and we're very focused on price? Well, I think the man to tell us is the newest member of BA's management team, and I'm going to welcome him to the stage now. That is Mr. Frank van der Post. Frank, come and join me. Well, Frank, I know when we spoke before that you're not a newcomer to the World Travel Market because you've been here many times before from your previous industry of the hotel hospitality sector. You were with the Intercontinental Group and Jumeirah Group. What on earth possessed you to leave that environment, which I'm assuming, right or wrongly, is more comfortable than the airline sector?
Different for sure. I'm still trying to figure out why I changed. No, kidding aside, I think the airline industry is fascinating and extremely interesting. I think there's a lot of parallels between the hospitality industry and the airline industry. I mean, there's a lot of differences as well, but I think from a brand and customer and commercial perspective, there is a lot of parallels. And an airline isn't necessarily about transporting passengers from place A to B, but it's about being a service provider.
Well, you came in the beginning of this year, I think, just as
January,
the cabin crew dispute was being officially put to bed. We heard from Keith the company is moving on, but it must be a difficult time to come in. We're going to discuss, of course, in the next few minutes about the whole issue of service, but cabin crew are pretty keen delivering that, and we saw very publicly in the media a lot of the bitterness last year. Are you personally managing to address that and now get things back on track in terms of crews' hearts and minds?
Yeah, I think what I've noticed, and I spoke to, in the first 3 months, I must have spoken to about 1,500 of our cabin crew members on individual basis and, one-to-ones, is that the vast majority of them are extremely passionate about the customer and delivering a good customer service. And I think that forms a great basis to work from, to try and re-engage and re-energize them, really, to bring back the service levels within BA, for which it's so well known. And, again, if you look at our brand campaign and you look at the brand ad and some of the key drivers behind that, it's the flying know-how and the thoughtful service and the Britishness, which I think really define the BA brand. And it's up to us to find the right ways to re-energize re-energize the cabin crew. And we've put a number of initiatives in place which are starting to make a difference. Excuse me, Matt.
I mean, even just driving here today, Frank, I see the posters on the roads around London, the pilot's hat with "To Fly to Serve" on it. There's a very impressive TV commercial, which some people in the audience may have seen and others not, but the rumoured price tag of that commercial runs into the millions. My question is that really money well spent in this time of austerity, and with those cabin crew looking and saying, well, we were loggerheads of the company a year ago, is that really something that can be justified, Frank?
No, well, I think it is. I mean, there's a couple of things to that quite clearly. I think, first of all, the brand campaign is more than just sending out an ad there. And traditionally, there's a lot of advertising money went into price-led advertising, which is very tactical. So you start throwing a lot of money at your least profitable segments. And what we needed to do is really do a great brand campaign. I think the ad itself has stirred quite some positive emotions within the company. 90% of our colleagues see the ad very favorably and makes them proud to work for BA. And I think that was an important driver of giving the campaign, or putting out the campaign at this stage. It is an expensive campaign, but that's how ad campaigns go. But what we're seeing is that there's a tremendous uptick in the interest of the brand.
So it's all based on this idea of to fly to serve, as we said. But what does that really mean today? Is there room for service? Is it not just a great big conflict in everybody would love great service, but more and more people are not prepared to pay for it?
Well, I think, look, at the end of the day, I think the to fly to serve is when we looked at what is it going to take to reinvigorate the brand. Sometimes you don't need to reinvent it. You just look at what made it great in the first place. And I think, the coat of arms and the whole to fly to serve ethos, which has been with BA for decades, just needed to be dusted off really and put back on the forefront. I truly believe that there is space for a premium carrier. Because if people weren't prepared to pay for it and prepared to pay for service and quality, we would all drive a cheap Japanese car, or a Korean maybe these days. But we're not, right? There's different cars out there, people have different tastes, and people value different parts of that customer journey. And what we're clearly seeing is that if you deliver that service well and provide value, and you're relevant to the customer, customer needs really and their preferences, people are prepared to pay a premium for it.
Well, let's go through the BA business model, or the diversity of the business model, and the environment you're working in, and sort of question that and try to see if that really holds water, what you're saying. I mean, starting with short-haul flights. I mean, we just had results on Monday this week from Ryanair. Again, stunningly successful. We're in the toughest environment you could imagine. We had Michael O'Leary saying in the case of Greece that if Greece exits the euro, he'll take drachma, he'll take goats for payment, that people won't go on 800 euro packages to Greece anymore. They'll go on 50 euro tickets on Ryanair. He's talking about, I think, even selling on-board pay-per-view pornography. Is that not really the tone of short-haul travel today? I mean, Ryanair's flying, I think, about 75 million people around Europe. That's not by accident, but you're also flying people around Europe too. Can you A, make money on doing that when you've got a competitor like Ryanair, and B, can you in a meaningful way differentiate yourself and get the money you need?
Yeah, with Michael O'Leary, you may be flying with the goat next to you, and I wonder how long you're prepared to do that.
New revenue stream for him.
But new revenue stream for him, I guess so. I think there will, there's obviously those customers and consumers who want to go purely for price, and they know the cost of everything, and they don't care about the value of anything. I think if you look at it at the end of the day, and certainly in short haul, I think the legacy carriers, and certainly British Airways, I think we provide a value. And we have certain components within the price which we're, as a premium brand you offer, and people are willing to pay for it. The interesting thing is, once a lot of the consumers are starting to add up all the costs and all the add-ons, there isn't that much price differential anymore. And I think that is a task we have had, is to better educate the consumer on, what you get what you pay for really, and within British Airways, you do get certain elements in your travel experience you wouldn't get with a low-cost carrier.
Coming back to the point, though, are people prepared to pay for it? I mean, we just had, again, I think even this morning, we had Air France's, I think, third quarter results out, and their management team has said one of the things they have to address, it was a pretty poor result, is restructure our short-haul operation. And this has always been a challenge in the last 10 or 15 years for, you could say, these legacy carriers, of which BA would be termed, or network carriers.
Yeah, I think you need to have a relevant product. And within the relevant product, you can charge a relevant price. At the same time, I think short haul doesn't stand just necessarily on its own. Our short haul operation has a significant impact on long haul performance. You can't be a low cost carrier on one hand and a premium carrier on the other hand. That doesn't work either. What we do offer as a full service airline is, that transfer traffic and the ability to transfer your bag from, one destination through London to another destination, which again is an advantage we would have over others. That doesn't take away from the fact that you do need to look at your offering and say, well, is what you offer considered a value add on the moment to the consumer, and are they prepared to pay for it? So we are indeed also looking at our short haul operation and saying, okay, how can we be more relevant to what we offer? But still at the same time, you are a premium carrier within a long haul and short haul network. And I think that gives you the opportunity to define that slightly different.
So notwithstanding what Michael O'Leary might say, you wouldn't say, well, we're likely to see British Airways disappear from short haul operations any time in the near future?
No, short haul is an integral part of our business model and is critically important to our long haul operation. I think 30% or so of our traffic into long haul comes from the short haul feeder network. So I don't think we'll see it disappear anytime soon.
And what about you have two cabins still certainly on European, if not domestic services, you have a business cabin. Is that something that's going to stay, do you think, or change its guise in the short haul arena?
Yeah, we've been, I think, very innovative in our short haul two-class configuration because of the seats which we can expand, and we therefore have a great flexibility on some of the aircraft where we can expand the number of rows of Club Europe travel. If you look at some of our services in the early morning going to Geneva and Zurich and Milan, I mean, they are literally 10, 15 rows packed with club travelers.
That's interesting. So you still are succeeding to do that?
There's still a market there.
Okay.
I mean, the midday service clearly is, less fully booked at that particular class. The flexibility we have is to give us that ability to be playing into the market a little bit. But there certainly is still a demand for that particular market. It's for us to figure out where this is going in the next 3 to 5 years and say, okay, is that still relevant in 3 years from now, and make the right decisions on the future investments.
Turning to the long haul arena, that's arguably even more complex, more difficult than the issues we've just talked about on short haul, because you've got several cabins, you're competing with different people and different desires. On the one hand, you have your premium cabins, the first class, Club World business class, and then at the other end of the spectrum, still many times a very price-driven economy product. And you're competing with a host of carriers. We have the high quality of the Middle East and Asia, such as the Emirates or Singapore Airlines. But equally, we're seeing a little bit of an emergence now of long-haul low cost, with AirAsia X, who is flying into London from Malaysia, or just announced, I think Singapore Airlines is going to launch their own low-cost carrier out in Asia, Scoot. How, again, being new to the business, how are you tackling this? Because it's not the same requirement for each customer across the long-haul service.
No, it isn't. And again, I mean, we're constantly evaluating, the four-class cabin configuration. The Club World, we're one of the very few airlines in the world who have all flat beds throughout the entire long-haul fleet. And I think that's doing extremely well for us. We're in the midst of an investment of about 100 million in the first-class cabins. And again, we see the customer satisfaction's risen, 15 or 18 points in those specific cabins. World Traveller Plus, we've just upgraded the meal service and done a few things just to lift that cabin a little bit. it allows us to do is segment much better. If we look at our customer archetypes, we've done a lot of research in the last, relaunching the brand campaign, and we've, I think, done a great job on the segmentation of our travelers, and we now know much better where to target which cabin to which consumer.
I mean, first class in particular, there's been a long debate, amongst legacy airlines or network carriers like BA whether first class should stay. Some airlines it has gone. If I remember rightly, even BA, it's gone on certain routes, possibly, for example, I think Caribbean out of Gatwick. Is there really demand for first class? Is it going to continue to be down to about 12 seats, I think, on this flights?
We've got 14, most of our planes, we've got 14 first class seats. We don't have it on all our planes. I mean, we have a number of three class configurations, because not every route will be or can carry a full first class cabin. And I think, with some of the investments we're doing, with the diversity we have in the fleet, with some of our new 787s are coming in, we're going to be much better able to make sure that we get the right plane onto the right routes. And sometimes at the right time of the day, because you may fill a first class cabin on an evening flight to Philadelphia, but not on the day flight. And I think that agility and that ability to make sure that you target your segmentation and you target your segments accordingly will increase your route profitability. But there's definitely sufficient demand for first class, certainly from London, because I think Heathrow is the #1 premium market in Europe for sure, to continue with first class.
Well, we see in the financial results, not least last week, just announced by your parent company now, IAG, that up to this point in time, notwithstanding the global challenges, that this business cabin segment, the premium segment, is still holding up. It's pretty buoyant. I can think back to the days when BA, I think, first launched Club World. Its business class was then so far ahead of, let's say, its main competitors in the North Atlantic, which were in those days Pan Am and TWA, both airlines consigned to the history books. Do you think, and again under your leadership, you can not only keep up but try to keep ahead, because it seems that specification of products changing more quickly, and we're not talking now about the TWAs and Pan Am's kind of also ran competitors. We are talking about, as I said, Emirates, Singapore, a number of very smart, very slick airlines in the world offering extremely good service. Yeah. Can you keep that fleet afoot to maintain the traffic in the following?
Yeah, I think to me there's 3 points to it. I mean, first of all, we need to make sure that we do continue to deliver a premium service. So your food and wine, I think, need to be of a good standard. We just went through the menu change about a week ago, and we've basically upped the quality of food and the quality of wines we offer in Club World, because it is a very important cabin to us. Secondly, I think you need to continue to make sure that you stay relevant in that market, and we do need to look and say, okay, what is that next generation seat going to look like? Now, the current seat has only been in, I think, for the last 3 years, so it's still got a bit of a lifespan, but we're already thinking about, okay, what's the seat of the future look like? Interestingly enough, I think this year we've still won, I think, about 3 or 4 significant awards for our business class configuration. So although the competition is catching up, we're still perceived as staying ahead or being ahead of everyone else. And it's our task to just continue to innovate and make sure that in 5 years' time we're still ahead.
Now, you touched on your other premium cabin, the World Traveller Plus, which I think that's your premium economy.
Correct.
Is that not just really an afterthought, a reluctant statement to put that cabin on board the aircraft? Is it really just a risk that you may get people trading down to that cabin from business class, or is it serving a different purpose?
I think it serves a great purpose, actually. I think there is undoubtedly, and certainly in time of austerity, where a particular business class traveller may say, look, I can't take the business class ticket because my client doesn't want to pay or my company doesn't want to pay. And I think the World Traveller Plus cabin would be a great alternative. At the same time, we found that there is quite a number of economy class passengers who are willing to trade up. And it's positioned really well between the two because you've got more leg room, you've got more space, and we've now upgraded the food offering. And, you know, it's not a flat bed, but, you know, the seat will recline significantly more than in economy class. And I think it gives us a great opportunity to fill from both ends, right? People trading down. The demand we have for our Club World is so high that we'll backfill that anyway, so we're not worried about it. To me, the World Traveller Plus is a great alternative.
And what about economy? I mean, this is the mass travel markets. I mean, and you mentioned BA is a premium company. Again, is it a rather reluctant thing? You have to carry around these 200-300 seats in a 777 or a 747, or is it something you need to give more attention to? Again, given that it's a competitive field, and many people, whether they wish to or not, simply can't afford anything but to go in economy.
Yeah, I mean, look, you wouldn't exist without the economy class. I mean, at the end of the day, you need that too. But and I don't think we look at it as a necessity. You know, it is one of the 3 or 4 cabins we have on board. It's the majority of our passengers actually do fly in economy class. Interestingly enough, about half of our executive club card holders, gold card holders, travel in the back of the bus on a frequent basis. So it is an area we're placing quite a bit of focus on. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you look at our new 777-300, for example, you know, it's got beautiful new configurations throughout, and the economy class cabin is just, you know, it is state of the art. It's got the latest IFE in there. We're really trying to do something to give that customer value for money as well.
Frank, I think let's go to the audience and see if they'd like to ask you some challenging questions, hopefully. If you just like to put your hand up if somebody has a question, and we'll get a microphone to you. Yeah, gentleman just over here to my left. Microphone's just on its way.
Yeah, my name is Brian Donnelly of FCM Travel Solutions. We're a travel management company. I understand that you're in the process of changing some elements of your frequent flyer program. I'd just be interested to hear your rationale for that. Thank you.
Yeah, we will be, you know, relaunching the BA Executive Club. And that comes on the back of you know, the Avios, the change from the mileage company, mileage points, to the Avios. That I think for BA Executive Club members isn't really a big change. I think the most exciting part of the change is that we're starting to implement another tier in our offering. And that bronze tier, which is going to sit between blue and silver, will give more of our frequent blue card holders something to aspire to, and you know, give them the ability to check in a business class and a few other benefits. I think the advanced seat assignments 7 days out, just to recognize and reward those blue card holders which travel more than once or twice a year with us.
Okay, gentleman on the front.
Raymond Lloyd, the editor of the Parity Democrat Westminster. I've been suggesting for some time that one way of celebrating the Diamond Jubilee in 2012 is for Heathrow to be renamed after Queen Elizabeth II. Is this a proposal which the British Airways could support?
You know, at the end of the day, Heathrow is operated by the BAA, and we're just, you know, one of the occupants within the Heathrow campus, albeit a big one. And I think this question would be better directed towards the authorities there.
Okay, gentleman on the front, just here.
Yeah, my name is Hugh Riley. I'm from the Caribbean Tourism Organization. So it won't surprise you to know that I have a question about the air passenger duty. The APD is charged in different rates, 2 different rates really, based on whether you're flying in economy or any other class above economy. Has that changed the decision about the configuration on the plane in any way? Has that affected your decisions?
Well, it's a great question, actually, and you know, it's one of those which have not helped in the World Traveller Plus cabin, because that cabin now is taxed similar to to a business class or first class cabin. And I think we would like to see, for sure, that the World Traveller Plus cabin is more seen in the same vein as the economy class cabin, because I think that would give it a great boost. The price differential of what we offer to the consumer you can explain, but then adding on the APD taxes, I think it becomes a little bit more difficult.
Okay, gentleman over here.
Yes, Alan Hodder. I'm an aviation consultant and also a very modest investor
So you just hold the microphone up.
in the parent company now. The question I pose is one I also asked Mr. Williams after the last AGM. Why is it that senior management at BA never wear anything in their dress that indicates the branding they represent, be it a corporate tie, a pin, or something? You leave me with the impression, frankly, that it's nondescript, the management. And I know the qualities are far from that. But I do think on public occasions, when these things are there, you should be selling the company at all times. And I think it's a failing of BA, particularly within the BA Iberia competition, if you will. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I do. You'd be happy to know that the lining of my jacket is similar to the one in the jackets of all the cabin crew.
We don't see that. We don't see it.
Well, it's on the inside. And actually, my colleague Silla Maisie, who's the managing director of Gatwick, very frequently wears crew uniform.
Yeah, but the point is it should be worn constantly. And I raised this, as I say, at the last AGM with Mr. Williams, and he said, and as he took over from the gent who went to work down in Madrid, he said, you will see things changed. Well, please go back and say, I see no change other than Del Boy.
Okay, let's have another question over here.
Hello, Peter Duncan from Aviation Wise, former BA employee and shareholder, and I proudly still wear my BA underwear, I do have to say that.
I wasn't going to show that.
What I wanted to ask was, and congratulations on your new campaign, it's an excellent campaign. How important is the branding of the parent company? Because some people know it as IAG, some people know it as International Consolidated Airlines Group. The City papers, when they're showing the share price, use a whole load of different names. And in fact, City AM, which is a paper I often use, the Free City newspaper, calls it International Con, which I don't think is very good for your brand identity. So could you talk about the important significance of the branding and the profile of the parent company? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean,
and what it's called.
Correct. IAG, International Airlines Group, is clearly, a holding company. The structure it's set up to have is underneath it will have different operating companies. And, we believe that the individual brands of the operating companies have considerable strength and are stronger, or should be stronger, because there's so many affiliations and ties towards that. So British Airways, Iberia, and any other ones which may come into the fold of IAG will have and will continue to have their distinct individual brands. Now, behind the scenes, there's quite a lot of synergy work going on to make sure that we take benefit really from being one organization.
Okay, we have another question over here.
Chris Maffiden, I'm a researcher and an academic. I'm just considering whether BA as a company has thought about the long-term effect of the technology that's available today, very cheap technology of webcasting, teleseminar, webinar, how that is going to have impact on the long-term travel, especially of your executive class.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm looking more here at this stage from my old background as a hotelier, but the conferencing facilities obviously are getting better and more developed, and I think there's a place for that. At the same time, I think nothing will beat for people to meet face to face. If you want to do business or you want to conduct business, the end of the day, the best way to do that is to see persons, in person, rather than through a television screen or a computer camera. So from that perspective, I think you'll get maybe a little bit more regionalization of meetings, but at the end of the day, I think people will continue to fly to meet and go somewhere else.
Another question over here.
Hi, my name is Janaki. I'm an analyst with Euromonitor International. We are a market intelligence company. During my research for travel and tourism in the UK, especially this year, what I've come to learn from some of the people involved in the aviation industry is that Britain is actually losing its competitiveness, if you like, given all the challenges which you were discussed while you were talking, while the Keats video was going on. So do you think that is the case, that Britain is actually losing its competitiveness in the aviation sector while other European counterparts are gaining?
Yeah, I think it's well documented that the taxation, and specifically the APD in Britain, is higher than anywhere else in Europe, really. And whenever you do that, you put the competitiveness of a company at risk. And it, quite clearly, if the APD family of 4, I think at the moment is £240 of APD, and that's a major attack on the budget when you want to go on vacation. So I think it doesn't make it any easier for Britain to be competitive in the global market. That said, I think Heathrow is still one of the key hubs within Europe and certainly has an attractiveness from a transfer position as well.
Frank, well, we're just approaching the end of the session. I just see another question coming in a moment, but let me just ask you a bit about the IT side of things. And I was reflecting, again, back to Fly to Serve. In some respects, airlines are getting customers to do more and more things for themselves. If we look at Terminal 5, you could argue maybe one of the positive things, arguably, is if you want to get through quick, you can print your boarding card at home or do it on your iPhone. But you're not seeing people. You're losing some of those, I think they're called touch points, which you might have used in hotels, and I think airlines use too. But just take us through a rationale on that. Loss of some human contact against other really benefits of getting customers to go onto websites more and more to do things.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we just, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, had the 1 millionth download of a boarding card on a personal device. And that's only with the ability at this stage to have it just as an executive club member. I think in the next week or so we're going to be launching this for even non-executive club members, so that number is going to explode. So quite clearly the consumer, that is what they want. I think what we need to do as a full-service airline is to determine and find out, okay, what are those areas where you can have impact on that customer journey. At the end of the day, they want to get, to the airport, through the airport, and into the plane as quickly and efficiently as they can. But then there is opportunities, in the journey itself, because there you have a very captive audience to make a service impression. So is there an opportunity for us to do certain things we're currently not providing? But I think in general, I mean, I haven't visited the bank for years. I do everything online, and you go to the ATM machine, you get your cash, and why would I want to wait in line to get some cash out? So I think the whole consumer preferences are changing. Time is luxury, so people want to have an
Is there, however, going to be enough support there when it's required? I mean, one thing I've noticed, particularly on an airport ownership side of things, you go through an airport, you're not sure where your gate is, or a flight might be delayed, or it doesn't seem to be coming up on the screen, and there's no longer like an information desk. And it can be as frustrating as anything when you're thinking, well, where do I go? There's no airport information desk anymore. They say, touch some screen. I'd rather go and speak to somebody. Is BA conscious of that as an issue?
Oh, 100%. I mean, this is a great example, actually, and we just trialed for the last 3 months where we gave 100 of our cabin service directors or in charge cabin crew members an iPad, and we developed some very specific iPad applications for them to better know and understand the customers on board. So the old, passenger information list, the toilet roll, as I keep referring to it, is now replaced with a, with a very slick electronic version. It's had tremendous feedback from the customer. It's tremendous feedback from the cabin service directors. We've just decided that we're going to be rolling that out amongst all 2,000 in-charge cabin crew members. The next version of that, which is now under development, is, okay, how can we take the strength of what we built and rebuild that into something which we can deliver at the airport? So our duty managers, we're going to do a trial, I think starting in the next month or so, where our duty managers at the airport will have an iPad with all the relevant information. So rather than you having to go to a desk, they will be very approachable, and they can, on their personal device, they can help you, they can rebook you, they can, make all the necessary arrangements to get you going. So rather than one desk with a long line in case of disruption, we would have, 100 or 150 people out there trying to help you along. And I think that's something which is more relevant these days than, having to have you wait in line.
And another aspect on the website, at the end of the day, BA and parent IAG, you're hard-nosed businesses. You're there to make profit, which can be difficult in the airline industry. What about using the website in that sense to make more money? Again, in a very aggressive way, I would say Ryanair has got customers like Pavlov's dogs. They go to a website almost automaton style because they know there's going to be an offer on there. I mean, Ryanair, every step of the way, will seek to sell. BA's been doing that more and more. Dynamic packaging, offering you upgrades, offering you car hire, whatever. Is that something you're seeking to do more and more of to supplement the margin on the actual ticket price?
I think that's a continuing trend. Again, it's a one-stop service, and as I mentioned earlier on, time is luxury. So if you can do it all on one website, why bother to have to go to 2 or 3 of them? And we, again, through research, and we're finding out that adding in certain elements into what we call the retail package is actually something which is quite interesting to our passengers.
Does it work? I mean, because again, people will argue, on the one hand, people want cheap fares, a la Ryanair style, but they will complain that I didn't know I was buying this, and I didn't know that insurance was going to be forced upon me. Are you going to take a same kind of surreptitious approach, or are you going to be a bit more direct or
I think
modified?
We're always going to be a full-service airline, and there's always going to be value in what we deliver, and we don't want to play around with hidden fees and debit card fees, because customers, I think, are seeing more and more, figuring out more and more that they're getting fleeced in a way. So we want to be very transparent in our pricing, but there's certain adds-on we can bolt on to the pricing, which may be the car hire, or maybe the the redemption of miles to pay for car hire or a hotel room, which clearly consumers have told us that they want, and I think it's then not easy, but fairly easy for us to say, okay, how far can we stretch this?
I'm going to give this person over here the chance for the last question today.
Hello, Albertina from MTV International. And this is more of a question about positioning and marketing. I'm actually not sure how to pose this exactly, but all of your communications seems to be towards the business traveler or the luxury holiday traveler. How important is perhaps youth or communication towards the people who are actually filling the back of your plane, or the majority of your plane, meaning economy, and who are aspiring to perhaps one day be that business luxury traveler?
No, I think it's a very valid question. It's a very good question, actually, and I think we have a number of initiatives underway to, stretch that message a little bit. Clearly, to fly to serve and the aviator message was very much about putting a stake in the ground and laying claim to a space very few airlines can, and really set us up for a 3-year plan which we have developed in the brand advertising campaign. Having said that, I mean, if you look at some of our online ads we've recently put on, we've put on a great ad from one of our female 747 captains, who's also the world champion kite surfing. And, it's certainly not something I could do, but she's very, very eloquent and proficient in it. In some of our more tactical advertising, it's not only about the expensive occasions, it's also the London City to to Switzerland journeys where, you know, we advertise that skis go free. You know, so I think we're trying to reach a broader public. And I think going forward, and you know, again, specifically towards the Olympic advertising, if you look at the Great Britain program and the advertising we've done around that, it's all about young British talent, young British athletes, and you know, how we can bring the younger flyer into BA.
Frank, well, I think we're going to have to draw the session to a close. It's also the end of the third airline session here at this year's World Travel Market. So I'd like to thank the audience from myself, John Strickland. Frank, I'd like to thank you very much for coming along today, John, for stepping in where we had to have Keith in virtual form. We look forward to inviting you back again in the future. So thank you very much today, Frank van der Post.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank
Cheers.
you.